Hey everyone. Well, that was pretty much a wild trading day today. We're going to get into it with a lot of these stocks. There were some pretty massive moves today, not only in the vaccine stocks, but across the board, even in the Bitcoin names. And, there's one in particular I was really surprised to see someone actually start coming out and buying that's a very large institution. So we're going to get right into it. And everything's going to be in alphabetical order. There's about 25 names, a little bit more that we're going to get through tonight. But there's a lot of action and actionable ideas. So let's just get right into this. The first one on the list is Amazon. And I just want to zoom into this so we're all on the same page. So this was the gap down. And what we saw since that gap down, let's clean this up. And just that way we don't have the pre and post data in. So this was our gap down. And then what we've seen is this was the highest close. We've seen that close now, run up to that level and stop. That's not really any reason to worry about anything. It's just going to base. Nobody thinks that this is going to run right back up. It just doesn't work that way. So what we're going to have to see is just have a little patience. But I like the idea, and I think you're getting a discount on the stock. The barriers to entry here are pretty significant. And if you just go across the board at where you're sitting right now, right? I mean, you can see that this is an area that has been resistance and support before, and it will continue to be. It's just going to give it some time, and this trade will be fine. And I think you're going to get up to here. But I think it takes about a month or two to get up that way, but I do think you're going to head up that way. In regards to ASAN, this is another one from the newsletter. If you don't get the newsletter, there's a free version that comes out on Wednesdays, which is actually tonight, so that you can just type in your email and it just automatically goes. So it's every Wednesdays and it's free. So, and the link will be in the description and in the bio, I believe too, there's a link. So ASAN has done exactly what we thought it would do, right? It has come down, pulled all the way down, tested us, shaken people out, ripped right back up. One of the things I always try to explain to people, if you can, some people can't because of risk tolerance, is to hold all or some of your position on your stop until you see the close. You're dealing with a very different kind of market than when I started trading years ago, where you have a lot of funds out there that are using AIs and things like that and algos to trade. And what they're looking to do is they're looking at where they can get the most action, right? Where they can get the most edge. Well, the most edge that they can get is just tricking stops. If you think about it, getting people to buy on buy stops, getting people to sell on sell stops, triggering those, taking the stock in and then going the other way is beautiful. And if they can calculate how much of it they need to do at a certain level, that's what they're doing. So that's why you're seeing, it's happening more than ever where people are getting stopped out and then it's going higher. So you're going to have to change with the times a little bit. They can drag it down for a couple minutes, but they can't drag it down all day. There'll just be too much buying. And if it does get down all day, then you know that the selling is real. But in regards to this, you're kind of trapped here, right? In between the top of this red bar and right underneath here, right? You're seeing that little support line, 69.30, and we're grinding. We're grinding back to the top of that. We'll get back to that level. And we had, let me just see this and see when the next earnings are. So we don't even have to worry about earnings until September, end of September. So we have plenty of time here for this to work itself through. I really like the trade. I just have to get to that 74.81 and then we're golden. So this is one we're going to spend a little time on. BNTX just had a monster day, up 15%. We actually closed at 414.45 after hours. I believe we're down about $7-8. It's not surprising to have an exhaustive move up and then figure out what's going to happen next. You have MRNA that has earnings tomorrow, and that is obviously going to move BNTX. There's no question about it. The revenues are going to move. So you just saw a lot of FOMO, and then you saw a lot of people wanting to get ahead of that. So we'll see how it plays out. But with that said, for those of us that are in the newsletter, just FYI before I even start there, for those, everyone just be aware, this is when earnings are. So earnings are coming out on August 9th. And just, keep that in mind, if you're going to want to be in there for earnings or not going to want to be in there for earnings. but at least you know when those earnings dates are so that you can just make a more informed decision. But to me, I really think that they should just crush, and I really think that mRNA should too. You know, there's no reason to think that people aren't getting this vaccine. I mean, the World Health Organization came out today and said, please stop getting shots of boosters because there's so many other poor countries that don't even have the shots yet. So that just tells you the pent-up demand that's out there for years on these products. Now, how much of that's baked in, that's a conversation that everybody needs to have. For us, we're in at 219 on the first portion. If you follow the top 10 list, you'll know that we've been in this since about 125, actually, the first breakout there. And then we got out around 175. But since we've been doing formally doing the newsletter, we've gotten into these two locations. You know, the one you had a double on today. I mean, obviously that's great. And the other one we're up over 150 points on. So both positions I'm very happy with. The stop will move up. So to me, you know, when you start moving parabolic like this, right? And we're going to spend time on this one because there's a lot going on there. And I want to show you also how to use the Fibonacci levels to trade for the day, like how you can actually day trade off of them. So you see this line right here? When you flip that, you can go parabolic. That's exactly what happened. It's flipped. We went parabolic. Parabolic means what you're seeing right here, where you go 33% in 5 days, right? That's parabolic. So, and that's what can happen when you flip those channels. Now, the question is, everyone's looking at this and going, well, how are you going to play this? Okay, well, if you throw in your indicators, there's your 8-day. So not everybody's going to want to wait till 320, right? So then if we go here and throw in the 5, okay, what is that really going to do for us? That's going to take me to 348. So none of that's really doing anything for me, right? Like, do I really want to drop 75 points? The answer is no. With some of these, you really don't, right? You should be scaling out now on these huge rips up and then moving a portion of to like a level like this fib level so that you have some skin in the game if this keeps going, but then you also sold some. And then if you'd average out your position, you'd find out that if that does happen, you'd be selling somewhere in the middle, or if it goes up, you have a position. That said, I expect this to be extremely active tomorrow. And I just want to point this out before we move on. So this was the stock today. And let me get rid of these earnings. Okay. I'm going to get rid of these indicators. So I want to get rid of the indicators for a second. So these were the fib levels from the daily. Okay. And I just want to point this out just so you can see this. Okay. This fib level is 1.236. This one right down here, hold on, let me just, they're duplicated. This is actually 1.0 and then flipped. So the point of here, let me show it to you this way so that you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, so here's 426 level, okay? Here's 355 level, right? See how you moved, you're moving up on this? Okay. So what you do now, let me go back to this point here so that you can see. So now you're stuck between these levels, right? The 406 level, which was what? That was our first fib level, and this other fib level up here. Right? So this is from a previous fib level, and this is from this level. And the fib levels move based upon what? Based upon taking out a higher high. So as you take out a higher high, that's exactly what's happening. Okay? That's exactly what's happening. The fib levels move on after the close. So if you look at this today, look at how it respected that level. Hitting here, 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 test, support, support, support. What happens when it finally closes even on a 1 minute below it? Right? Like you don't know that this is coming, but you know that there's going to be weakness. And you can see your double top here. And then as soon as you break that fib level, that's it. Now, what fib level does it start holding? The old one, right? And you can see that old level here, and then you start bouncing around, and then you trade it higher. But by leaving these older fib levels in, as well as the new ones, it does give you an idea on where the stock may trade to, and then where it might be a buying opportunity. And there were some buys around here if you were very quick to get in and out of it. But that's how you have to trade it now. You can't really be buying this up here at this level right around here and going, oh, I'm going to hold this forever. You can go back to 250. I mean, this could get hit. I'm not saying that you won't, years later it won't come back, but you want to get the best price possible. So that's how I would play this BNTX. And again, MRNA comes out with earnings, and we'll be covering that one in a couple minutes here. So I just want to go through this trade. I was asked a lot about this stock, BTBT, and the symbol's right up here in the corner. And let's get rid of the 5-day because that's going to really start clouding up my screen. So, okay. So what we're seeing here, right, you're seeing a nice coming across, breaking out. When BT, here, let me just click off this so that I don't need it anymore. So what you're seeing here is when you broke that 1125, that was it. It was game on, right? Here's your 1125. That's where you hit last time. This is where you ran to. That's all you needed to see. So I wanted to cover this because we've been talking about this for some time now, and it did exactly what it was supposed to do today. So this is setting up to go higher. It really is. And I'll just want to point this out to you. We have those levels so that you can see these. Let me do something here real quick so I don't have to listen to that beep. Okay. So if you look at this 1125 level, right, that's the level we were just talking about, okay? See how you come up here? And then what happens as soon as you break that? It just rips. So it's really important to have your levels drawn properly because it just helps you stay in the trade. Now, the question is, if you're in now, where does this go to? I think your first level that you could get to now is up here. Okay. You could get up that high. You can get into the high teens again. There's not a whole heck of a lot going on here if you look at volume. All this volume here versus this. And if you really want to see where the volume is and where your wedges are in shelves, you just throw in volume by price, right? You throw that in. And here you are coming across, okay? Where did you just happen to close? Right? You just happen to close on the volume by price VWAP, okay? So flipping this higher tomorrow is going to give you another push. If you flip this higher tomorrow, you'll be flipping this VWAP line, right, from the volume by price, and that should give us another push. And it could push us up to 19, and you can see the vacuum in here where the volume has gone away. So just keep that in mind. I do like the idea. Citigroup I was asked to cover. It shouldn't take really that long for us to cover it. Let's see, wait for this to pop up in here and populate. And it wants to give me a hard time. So let's try this. See if that one will work. I don't know why it's giving me a hard time now. Let's just try this. Let's reboot it. See if that'll work. There we go. Okay, good. So Citigroup. Let's put that C up there. So if you just do me a favor, comment if you're on a mobile and you can't see the number up here or the letter, you can't see the letter up here. Please comment. Let me know that because I'm trying to cut time down by posting these so people can see them. The watermarks don't show up on here if I use black, and black is the best way to show these. We've figured out. So what we're seeing coming across here, right? Look at that line, 69.42. I don't need to spend a lot of time on here, but I just wanted to point this out. Until you're above the 69.42, right? Resistance flips to what? Support, 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 resistance, support, right? Resistance, 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 resistance. So you have to flip this level. When you do that, you could probably get back up to the 71, 72 level, but you have to wait for that. CELH. This is another one from the newsletter. It's literally right where we're at. Now, there are some talk that they're not having earnings tomorrow morning, and there's a couple different numbers out there. Earnings Whisper has tomorrow. This product has the 17th. So I've got two different earnings dates. So I would just go on the assumption that it's tomorrow, and then if it's not, you're fine. But at least be aware that there's two different earning dates out there right now on this. I would believe the one that's in this system more, which would be the 17th. But what to do with this? Well, this is really interesting because this is another great example. See the stop, 67.50? So the stops don't come out of the newsletter until they close above or below that line, right? So here you are where you broke through that, and all they did was break you through the 50, right? The 8, the 21, and this trend line, and make you think that it was over, and then they closed it right back over it, right? So after they gap you all the way down, they bring it all the way back up. Now you start breaking through these levels, and that's what you're trying to do now. You're trying to get through 73.17. Getting through that level could give you a push back up to this 82. Whether or not they have great earnings, that's a fundamental question. I have no idea. And then even if they have good earnings, it doesn't mean that the stock's going to respond the way that we want it to. But I'm still shooting for this 82, 83. And, we'll see if it is tomorrow or not with earnings. But right now we're looking at the 17th. So CHWY, what we're seeing is finally we're seeing some action that is warranted, and the kind of action that you really want to see. So you don't have to really worry about CHWY, and you don't have to really worry about earnings till when, right? We don't have to worry about it till September, which is great. So where does that put us? Well, that puts us in a position where we can actually enter the trade and kind of go forward. Your first level you really need to watch is going to be getting above this wick, right? Which is right where you close, 90.40. 90.24 you can use, but you want to give it like 15 cents. That's why I said 90.40. And then this is going to be another issue, 92.52. Clearing through that, right, on CHWY is going to get us back up to this level. Okay, all these convergence up here and the top of this red gets you to 104 pretty cleanly. So I like this a lot. I'd like to see more volume. See how this volume line's decelerating? I don't really like to see a decelerating volume line as the stock is rising. So just keep that in mind. CL, so Colgate-Palmolive, it's just falling out of bed. There's not a whole heck of a lot that we have to say here or spend time with. It had earnings. The earnings were bad, and I just want to point this out. For those that are new, when you have the 200-day here and you break the 200-day, right, that's the last bastion for the bulls. They're gone. Everybody's out. So the people that are going to get out that were there to support it, they're all gone. And that's why a lot of people will not buy. If something breaks the 200, they'll wait for it to break back over it. And then if it breaks, they're out. They literally will do this trade over and over again because they don't want to be in a stock that's below the 200-day moving average. But if I was in this, especially after today's move, you need to get out of it. I see no reason why you're not heading back to here just to start 74. I mean, right? You see that hump and you see this? Like, there's just no reason why Colgate's not heading back to that level. So CLX was one that we did for a trade. And, it was a decent trade, but you have to get through the 166.39 level. You have to pop through that and get back to this 178, right, 91 level, but you have to get in there to do it. We're not closing in there. If you look at this, right, we're not closing in this space. It's just wide open. So we have to close in there, and we will. We just have to get there. But it's going to take a little time, it looks like. It doesn't look like it's going to move. It's not a fast mover anyway. So CRM I wanted to cover. I really like this name, and I like the company. I mean, they usually fire on all cylinders, but it's very similar to Oracle, where they come out with earnings that are excellent, and then it just blows up. And the earnings are always really good. Here they were just, you couldn't even, right? I mean, they were just incredible here, and the stock reacted so. But, when you're coming into earnings, you really just want to wait until it comes out with earnings, blows up like it usually does, gaps down, right? And then just kind of go from there. But I'm not buying this crossed like this. See, you have this, you're up here, 251, right? You're here, 251, tried it, couldn't even get as high as this to test it again. Now look where you're at. So it's just not something that I'm interested in at those levels. I would watch this, and I would wait till earnings most likely and hope that there's a sell-off on earnings that gives me an opportunity for a better price. And I don't really want to be buying something that's got a 200-day that's pointing down, even though this is a great company. So Hood, so the trade that's on right now, and we talked about this the other day, I'm just going to use this data because I want at least 30 data points. So, and we're going to get rid of these indicators because we really don't need them. So this was our range, right? from the opening on the 15-minute, 40 to 33, okay? And you can see how we held here, traded up. Look what happened when you got above that 40. That's why it's so important to have your levels drawn properly, right? As soon as you got up, that was it. You could literally have used this as your stop and used this for 75-cent stop and been in this trade for $8. Just, I mean, it's perfect. So what you want to see now is you start seeing it break out again, and you just start marking off the key levels. I know after hours, I think it's down a little bit. I don't really look at after hours when you start trading down like that, unless it's huge volume for the chart. But getting over the 69 and clearing over the 69 before the end of the day leads me to believe that we're going to be pretty active tomorrow. And you might see another move up. See this trend line here? See how you're holding that 69? See how you're above both those levels? That's set up to move. So, I mean, not to be too blatant, but here's the big wicks, right? Here's a cup. Here's a handle. You can clone this. Okay? You always try to clone them because you want to match the trajectory. So here's a cup in there. Here's your handle, and now you're breaking out of your handle. So really your first point here, if you want to trade this, is getting through 73.44, and this thing could be off to the races again, pretty clearly. So I would definitely keep it on my radar. The move's not done the way it's trading. So Kraft Heinz. So this is another one that came out with earnings. And you're seeing these staple companies that are just coming out with earnings, and they're not doing well at all. This to me actually looks like it's in real jeopardy of breaking this trend line if it hasn't already. Yeah, you broke it. So you broke your long-term multi-year from the peak trend line. That's not really great. So let's throw in the indicators. Yeah, this is not something you really want to be in. So essentially the earnings must have been so poor, the way that they acted on it must have been so poor that they're just throwing in the towel on it. And that's exactly what seems to be happening here with Heinz. So I would avoid this. This is not something that I would be going near. So this is one that we keep talking about and I keep watching. And I'll just be candid. This is on a short list of mine for the newsletter. And, you know, there's really no harm in me telling you that. But, I mean, it's already come out with earnings, and I talked about it earlier. But you got to, let's just get rid of this one. Bring it down here for a moment. So I gap up, and we just don't know where we're going to go, right? We just don't know how this is going to trade. So you have to let it build, just like we let Snap build before we took a position in it, right? So, look, when you get through this level, okay, you have all this upside of this channel, right? 418, 420 to get there. So you have 75 points, 80 points of a move. It's pretty powerful stuff. So I would watch this 359.69 level pretty closely. I think this could be a massive mover. So I was asked to cover this one. It's not one that I look like I cover a lot, LHDX, but it does look like we've covered it. Now, the first thing I would say about this is I have no volume whatsoever. The second thing I would say is I really like when these lines start getting further and further away from each other. It usually means it precedes a really big move. So at 1016, which was the first hurdle that we had to get through, and this again is LHDX, now just get me through that 1110. Get through 1110 and you start looking for your peaks. Here's a peak, 1214. Then you're going to wind up here, right? 16, 16, so 60. So it's definitely worth watching. I mean, let me go back to that for a moment. I mean, this is definitely worth watching and keep it on your list. Mass was one I was asked to cover the other day, and I think this morning as well. Let me just see something here. Yep, earnings. So what we're seeing, and let me just make sure of something, make sure I have the full picture. Yep. So what we're seeing here is you're just trading down. Now, you're finally above the 8 and the 21, and you have not been above the 21 since back here. But that's not really my issue. My issue is that these are all pointing down, and they're all going to follow. Let me put this up here. And they're all going to follow going down. So you're going to have to watch that. But this is not something I would be in. If I wanted to buy this, I would be waiting for it to break above that 50-day because it has only done it once up here, right? It never did it before when we had a 50-day. This is MATX, MATSN. So again, see how this volume line is peaking up and starting to turn? That's what you want. See how you're riding this 200-day? See how this line and the trajectory of these lines are starting to open up and get away from one another? It's exactly what you want to see. It's everything, really. So here, look. 68.14, okay, MATX. So from this level, now that we're through this and this downward trend's broken, this one's broken, right? Chances of us getting up to this 79.04 are pretty increased. And we don't have to worry about earnings. They're already out. So I like this trade. I like this a lot. What I would look to do with this is get above this level. Let's get above that wick. We always want to get above wicks. Why? Because wicks are what? Price rejection, right? We know this. I'll link the video again for those that are new, but they're price rejection. And the video that I'll link is a candlestick video that actually explains the right way to use candlesticks, where they can actually, you can actually benefit from them. So I want to cover this one because it's up over 100 points or close, darn close to it if it wasn't up 100 points already tonight. And it's doing everything right. And I just want to kind of go through what's going on. I'm not going to get into the earnings, but this should be on your radar tomorrow. This is kind of the quarter that we were all hoping the Amazon or Shop would have that didn't have. And then people didn't play this one because they were looking at how those stocks did. But that said, let's see what's going on here. 1652.30, right? You're over it. Bonk, right? See where it's hitting? Bonk, bonk, right? Over and over again. Resistance, resistance, resistance. Now through. That's what you want to see. So tomorrow, you really want to make sure that you open above the 1652 level and you stay above it. I'll be looking at this tomorrow. I think this has huge potential. And it's not big enough move probably that the options are there's probably an options trade in here. So I don't think it's a big enough move that it's going to have, it's going to suck in a lot of premium tomorrow. So I think there's actually a trade here. And we're going to take a look at that on the option side. But there's no reason this can't get to 2,000 now. None. So we'll see how the call and everything goes tonight. But definitely put this on your list because you've been basing since back here. You've been basing for almost a year, right? And you broke out up here, and now you've just been basing. I mean, when you see things like this, you need to pay attention, especially when they're breaking out on good earnings. Okay, that usually is a really good sign. So MGPI, so MGP ingredients. Okay, so what we're seeing here is here's your 50, your 21, your 8, your 200. Look at the spike in volume. That's exactly what you want to see. What you don't want to see is that the 50-day we can't close above it. Well, if everything's so great, how come I can't close above it, right? So that's the very first thing. Not only do you want to close above it, right, and this goes hand in hand, you need to get above that level, 67.35, which is the high of this bar. And then you could probably start working your way back up to here to $75, up this, work your way back up to the top of this red bar that's obviously in charge of that pattern. So MRNA, just again, another monster day. Earnings are obviously tomorrow. And let's just kind of really get into this. So this is another one that when you start running like this, and I talked about this earlier, when you start running like this 200-day, right, 250, when you broke this right here, I said day, it's more the price, I apologize. The 250 level here, when you broke above this, right, that broke this blue line, okay? And let me clear off these indicators so you can see what I'm talking about because I don't really want to draw the fibs again. You see this line? When you broke that, that was it. You went parabolic. So when you broke out here, it was gone. And then you had the ad of the S&P, and this move was telling you that some news was coming, and it came. And that's exactly what you wanted to see. So now the question is, what do you do with it? Well, you really, if you're in this, you basically are going to try to use the breakout of this bar, right, as your low. But that's really 377. So you're going to have to give this some room if you're trying to stay in this trade. And I actually thought that we could get up to this 470 level before earnings. I was off by about 30 points, 35 points, about 8%. But to me, it looks amazing, and I think it'll do exceptional. I really do. So MU, it's going to be very interesting to see their earnings because I don't on MRNA because I don't know how they could be bad. I don't know how they're going to be unless they're having trouble getting raw material or something like that. MU, we're going to just throw these indicators back in. So this is really when you buy Micron Technologies. You buy it when nobody else wants to own it, right? That's when it starts to move, and that's exactly what it's doing. So what we're doing here with this is you're rallying, coming down, tested the 200. Let's get rid of all these lines now. So there's way too many. So, right, so you come down here, and let's get rid of these indicators because there's too many. See how you're riding that line and then you broke it? All you have to do is get above this red bar and close above this red bar, and you'll see buying. And look where you closed, right? You closed about 20 cents above it, which is great, but you really want to see a follow through on something like that. So really what you want to see is here. And then when you break these downward trend lines and confirm this move right here, usually that can take you and your target becomes the high of the wedge line. And this is the high of that wedge line, which will take you to 96.96. So I like this a lot. This is really setting up, and it's in the right space. Semis are on fire. They're absolutely on fire. And I think that'll continue. I can get rid of this little line. NVAX had the best possible outcome it could have today. And the reason I say that is some country came out and stated that they want to deal with them. Before it's just been mRNA and BND, TX, and obviously visors associated with them. You have not seen anyone really pay attention to NVAX, and that started to be felt, and that's why we actually started to break out here from this trend line, and then failed NVAX at this trend line here when everyone started getting those big contracts, right? Then you went to 178, and what happens today? They announce one, opens right under the trend, gaps over the 215, which was an issue. Now, the problem I will point out is, look where you stopped, right? I was asked today several times in the community, what's my target price? And I kept saying 231. And that's why it's 231, right? You stopped here, you stopped here, you stopped here. Now getting above that 231, and now you're looking at 263, and then you start looking at going higher, right? So, but you have to get through 231 first. So Roku came out with earnings, and they were not great. There's really no other way to say it. When you have viewing time down and you have average daily users down, that kind of stuff is just, we saw it with pins and what happened with pins. You can't be trading at an ultra high multiple and have news like this. People will sell the stock. And now I have this head up here and I have this one. This was my trend line, okay? And I could probably draw this down a little bit. And I know we're going a little later than usual because there's a lot that I really want to go over here. So I'm doing a couple more than 20 tonight. So what you're seeing here is that break after hours. That's not what you want to say, obviously. But the earnings, it just wasn't there. Just nothing that you wanted was there. The revenues look great. The earnings look good. But the actual metrics of who's using it, and you don't want to see that time is dropping off. And that's what you saw. Like, you just don't want to see that. I don't know how you can't expect, I'm just being honest, I don't know how you can expect to see that after a pandemic. So I don't think they've done a really good job of guiding. I don't think a lot of these tech companies did a very good job of guiding. I don't think Pins did either. I don't think Amazon did either, of really guiding the differentiation between last year and this year. Because obviously there's an enormous difference. What does this mean? You're probably coming to here. I wouldn't be surprised to see this with a 350 handle. Wouldn't surprise me at all. That's a nasty break, and a lot of people are along that and waiting for it to hit and for people to understand the true potential. So skills I keep getting asked about, and I just want to do this. It won't take very long. There's absolutely no reason to be in this. None. Like, if you're in this, just get out. I mean, I can't make it any clearer. You came out with earnings. Your earnings, your loss was twice what it was before. You can't even hold support here. You can't close above your 8-day. You're breaking here. This thing's going to single digits. You could set your watch to it. This is going to single digits. You can see it. If I count from here down to here, okay, I'm getting a 40% move off of this. Puts me at roughly $8. So this is not something you want to be involved with. SLI, I just wanted to cover very quickly because it's got a couple things that are really going for it. The very first thing I really like is you see this move. Okay, you have a really nice daily average line that's moving on the volume side here. I really like that. You have to get through this 830. If you get through 830, you can go. If you don't want to wait till 830, you have to wait for this 785 because the wick is halfway down. Wicks are what? Price rejection, right? So you're halfway down. So you just have to watch that. So Snap got added tonight to the newsletter at 76. We're up about $1 on it. Look, it could come in tomorrow on the Roku news. Just they have nothing to do with one another, I know, but it could happen. Just be aware of it. But we did everything we needed to do today. We can get rid of this, the pre and post data. And here's your wedge, right? Earnings gap. Everybody knows the earnings gap. Then you look at how you held support, right? You just happen to hold support right there, right? So, and now what? Now you're above your 8-day, closing above your 8-day for the first time up here. I think you're going to go to 79 and eventually higher, but the Roku could play with us tomorrow. The other one that they could play with is this TTD. I really like this name, and it's one that I really am trying to get involved with. Looks like 84.60 was the close or pre-market. You're down about $2 probably on the Roku news. Look, you're coming out with earnings too, so you're just going to have to be really careful here. You have earnings next week, right? You have earnings on the 9th. So you have to be really, really careful here with this. I like this name a lot, like a lot. And, you know, this break here, getting through that was perfect. 77, we would have been up 10 points on it. Just didn't pull the trigger. Was doing way too many other trades, focused on the vaccine stocks when it pulled and just wasn't there for it. I know we were doing okay, but I don't like when I miss things. So, and it happens to all of us. Anyone that says it doesn't happen to is just not being truthful. But this 77.28 level, when you broke here, that was it. You broke your falling wedge, boom, and then you went. And now you're gapping, right? But you're not really gapping anymore, are you? Right? So, but if you gap over that before earnings, it might be a fun 3 days. So WOOF, I just wanted to cover very quickly. You have the 8 and the 21 pointing down. Here's your line going straight across, right? I see no reason to get involved with this whatsoever. There's nothing redeeming about this, nothing. So I would avoid, and that's why I wanted to put it out there. If you're in this has to be, if you're in this stock, this has to just be your, last resistance point right there. And I wanted to, I want to go through this really quickly, but I want to cover some aspects of it. So it might take a little bit of time, and it'll be worth your time for you to understand this. And I talked about it a little bit before. And it's kind of one of the ways to stop getting stopped out of things. And I just want you to think about things a little bit differently. So let's get rid of these events, and let's open this up. Okay? So I'll walk you through it. So we did a trade yesterday in the community. For those that are not part of the community, which is fine, just I want you to understand the background of what we're talking about, or what I'm about to talk about, so you understand this. So this was, if you got rid of this bar and you saw this, right, all you would see, let's get rid of these indicators, all you would see is this, right? And you'd be like, oh, it didn't break the wedge, okay? Now, see this gap right here? See where you closed? So this is why learning these levels, okay, is so important. So see this level? That's the high of this. That's the open here. Look where you closed on this day, right? You literally closed right on it, okay, the same level. So what does that mean to me? That means that they couldn't get it to close lower than that, okay? So to me, it felt like they were trying to trap us into selling stock. And the reason I felt that way was they were pulling us down into this. So why would we be selling so aggressively? And I'm just trying to get you to think a little differently. Why would we be selling down so aggressively into the 8, right? The 200, the 21, and the 50 is pointing up, and the 50 is being bought by institutions. So maybe they're trying to drive it down because institutions want to increase their position, and they're having a hard time because they were all buying below the 50, then they're buying on the 50, and now the percentage is changing, right? So here they are trying to drag it down so that they could buy more, right? And you could do that with a simple algo, right? If they have enough money, they can do it. So when we put the trade on yesterday, I wanted to stay in the trade. That was the reason I wanted to stay in the trade. I wanted to make sure that I at least closed significantly below here, and then I probably wouldn't have stayed in it. And then you saw what happened today, right? We opened here, and then we gapped up, and then they just happened to do what? Take us right through this trend line, okay? And now this is our next level, this 406.86. So like the option trade we wound up doing exceptionally well with. People that trade the stock did exceptionally well with. The point is that you're in a completely different environment than you were 10 years ago. And certainly from when I started 20 years ago, you're in a way different environment because you have actual computers out there that are trying to trick human behavior to get you to act. So you have to kind of change a little bit on your thinking. And that's one of the reasons why I always talk about if you can wait for the close, if you can, on a portion of your position as a stop, consider it. So that's it in a nutshell. In regards to this, now you have to wait for 406.84, 48 for it to break out and go from there. As always, please subscribe to this channel, and notification should be on because we do pre-market shows. And if you get a chance, just like it as well. I'm trying to get in front of as many people as humanly possible. Thank you very much. Have a great night.